a U.S. citizen. That's not correct.
Liar.
It's not a U.S. citizen. It was actually.
Come on.
No, it was someone that was living here. Yeah, it was not a U.S. citizen.
Hey, this guy just lies. It's not.
No.
Hey, no. You wanna have a debate, but you don't.
It was
debate.
not a U.S. citizen. First of all.
You wanna have a debate, but you actually don't debate. There's nothing more ill-faith than this.
So we already have a mic.
Name two times. Name two times where you've changed your
Show
mind.
me you're losing without telling me you're losing.
What? So you're just going to lie?
Well, first of all, it's not a U.S. citizen. He was living here for a while. He was part of MS-13. Answer yes or no.
Okay.
Should members of a terrorist organization be able to stay in the United States after they've murdered, raped, and gone after American citizens?
Obviously, no.
So we have deported those people.
The event kicks off with an interruption. Before Charlie Kirk can even start, someone in the crowd cuts in. Instead of ignoring them, Charlie calls them up to the mic, ready to hear what they have to say.
Tell us what's so pressing that you needed to interrupt us before he could even talk.
So, let's talk about the 200 people deported without due process to El Salvador. I don't know if you saw this morning, but a United States citizen was actually deported.
It was not a U.S. citizen. That's not correct.
Liar.
It's not a U.S. citizen. It was actually.
Come on.
No, it was someone that was living here. Yeah, it was not a U.S. citizen.
Hey, this guy just lies. It's not.
No.
Hey, no. You wanna have a debate, but you don't.
It was
debate.
not a U.S. citizen. First of all.
You wanna have a debate, but you actually don't debate. There's nothing more ill-faith than this.
So we already have a mic.
Name two times. Name two times where you've changed your
Show
mind.
me you're losing without telling me you're losing.
What? So you're just gonna lie?
Well, first of all, it's not a U.S. citizen. He was living here for a while. He was part of MS-13. Answer yes or no.
Okay.
Should members of a terrorist organization be able to stay in the United States after they've murdered, raped, and gone after American citizens?
Obviously, no.
So we have deported those people back to their country.
The Fifth Amendment
That's what they've done.
calls for due process.
The Fifth Amendment does not apply to foreign citizens that are here
it says
illegally.
all persons.
No. It's only to U.S. citizens.
That's a f***ing lie. He's a liar.
So, okay.
He can't debate. He just lies.
You've now sworn like 3 times. Let's just
What,
calm
you don't
down
like
a little
freedom
bit.
of speech?
Well, I mean, you could say whatever you want if you want to make a fool of yourself, but we do have like 10-year-olds here and 11-year-olds, so can we have some decency?
Whatever.
Okay, you don't care. You're a typical leftist because you only care about yourself,
Who said I was
not
a
about
leftist?
the other people.
Who said I was a leftist?
Well, it's very clear by how you're acting. Let me ask you a question. Should we be able to deport terrorists that are here in the United States?
With due process.
And we gave them due process.
What was the due process?
They were part of MS-13. It was very clear.
No,
and
that
now
is
they're
not
in an
true.
El Salvadorian jail.
That literally isn't true.
The first real clash begins over a deportation story. The heckler claims that a U.S. citizen was wrongly sent to El Salvador without due process. Charlie immediately rejects that, saying the person wasn't a citizen at all, but a gang member from MS-13. The exchange turns tense as they argue over facts, with each side accusing the other of lying. What started as a single case now begins to grow into a much bigger debate about immigration, law, and national security.
Most
also,
importantly,
why wouldn't they just get deported? Why would they get sent to a jail?
Well, deported to a jail. By the way, many of these people
not even their country. They're not from El Salvador.
Many of these people were already in prisons for crimes that they committed against the United States of America. So do we have a right to decide who is in the interior of the United States?
Yeah.
Okay, so then what's your big disagreement?
It's called due process.
Again, the due process.
Hold on.
If every single one of them got their own trial and their own date.
They did not get a trial.
If they got that, it would take us 10 years to deport like 200 people. We have a constitutional right to be under the Alien Invaders Act of 1798 to be able to repel.
Not at war.
Well, hold on. We are at war. We've been invaded by 10 million people over the last 4 years.
Congress has to declare an
Actually,
act of war.
that's not correct. Congress never declared war against Iraq. We never declared war against Afghanistan. We actually never had an official declaration of war against Vietnam.
Well, everybody
the President
knows
of the United
America
States
commits war crimes every day.
Okay, that's a separate issue.
And
but let's stay
genocide.
focused. Who is the commander-in-chief?
Donald Trump.
Yes. So praise God. So if the commander-in-chief labels an invasion, it is an invasion. So when Venezuela opens up their prisons and sends in and to the interior of the United States, we have the right We have give you proof. The Venezuelan government has been found with a bipartisan congressional study that they have been sending the worst of their citizens to our country to increase crime, to kill people like Lake and Riley, to come into our communities. We have the opportunity and the ability, based on the laws of the land, to say that this is an invasion from a foreign country and we are repelling it. And by the way, how is it not an invasion when 10 million people come into your country uninvited?
That is an unfact number.
Okay, then let me ask, what is an invasion? What is an invasion?
I would call an invasion. I would call an invasion similar to Israel taking Gaza.
Hold on.
That's an invasion.
Hold on. No. Don't give me like a definition, like a textbook. Define the term.
It's a military conflict.
Okay, so what you mean when they come with weapons and they're all military-age men and they come into the interior of the United States and that they're being prompted by a government or a cartel? How is that not a invasion?
He's not a king.
No. Answer the question. I never said he was a king. He's a duly elected president. So is it not an invasion?
No. It's called illegal immigration. And you do it, and you solve it via due process.
Okay.
It's not an invasion.
At what point would it become an invasion?
Probably whenever they tear down the border and actually steamroll in with military vehicles.
Yeah, we would have no idea what that would look like, right?
No, we do know what it look like. It's what's happening in Israel and Gaza right now.
Okay, that's a whole separate issue that I'm happy to talk to you about.
It's a perfect example of an invasion.
No, hold on.
How is it not?
I actually agree that Israel has invaded Gaza. I agree. Okay, because they're using sophisticated military equipment like the Venezuelan cartel and the Sinaloan drug cartels. Secondly, it's planned by governments. Second, it's planned by governments. Third, and most importantly,
Charlie tries to reframe the discussion, calling the surge of illegal border crossings an invasion. The heckler isn't buying it, saying it's simply immigration that should be handled in court. The two can't agree on a definition, and the tone is getting sharper. Charlie wants to link the border crisis to national defense, while the heckler pushes back, insisting due process should come before any deportation. This sets the stage for a bigger fight over how the border is actually being handled.
Do you think 10 million people that have come into this country since Joe Biden was president, was that good for America?
To be clear, I don't think you're here to actually have a debate because clearly you never change your mind. No. So I'm actually not here to debate you.
I've asked you 5 or 6 questions and you haven't.
Faith person.
Yeah, you interrupted me.
Hey, do you condemn Elon Musk doing Nazi salutes?
Oh, so
do you? It's simple.
It's very simple. It was not a Nazi salute.
Then do it.
See, I have done it multiple times. No, let me interrupt you. That is a bad faith question and argument. You just did a Nazi salute. You're a Nazi. I can't believe it. Nazi. Get this Nazi off our campus.
Slams it down to their chest like Elon Musk did.
How about this? You and I both know
right-wing.
You and I both know that
in Germany.
Okay, you and I both know that Elon Musk is not a Nazi. It's such a ridiculous, preposterous thing to say. Instead, you are mad.
Why are we using American police to protect his dealerships?
Well, hold on a second. If any place of private property is torched, your home or a college campus,
why does the richest person in the world need our money to protect his property?
Hold on a second. If dealerships or if private property is threatened by a mob, that is the role of the police to protect private property, whether it be a Wendy's being burned by Black Lives Matter or a Tesla dealership being burned by angry people like you. The police should protect private property from swarms and mobs and hordes of people that would never build something themselves, want to destroy the property of others. The first and final cause of government is to protect private property rights. That is a good role of the United States Police Force or the FBI or the ATF.
Of the police protecting the dealerships before they even, before a mob is even there.
Hold on, preemptive.
Do you think that's a good use of taxpayer dollars?
Hundreds of Tesla
billionaires' property.
Hold on a second. It's not just billionaires' property. He employs well over 100,000 people. Tesla stock is held by teachers across the country.
And it's dropping not because of Americans, but because of Europe.
Do you want it to drop?
Absolutely.
See, that is a sick and twisted worldview.
What you want Target's stock to drop whenever they have an LGBT flag in their stock?
First of all, Target doesn't really.
Charlie shifts focus to Venezuela and organized crime, accusing the Venezuelan government of deliberately sending dangerous criminals into the U.S. The heckler immediately asks for proof, demanding evidence instead of claims. Charlie says Congress has already confirmed it, but the heckler isn't convinced. The discussion is no longer about one case. It's now about whether there's a deliberate effort to destabilize the country, and whether that could legally be treated as an invasion.
Explain. Target doesn't really make anything. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. So Target does not really make anything in this country. That's a separate issue. Tesla.
You're saying the same thing about the dealerships.
Allow me
They
to.
don't make anything. They just hold the cars.
Allow me to finish. You understand? All Tesla dealerships are owned by Tesla, and they're manufactured in America and designed by Americans, and they're made in America.
They're not designed. They're not all made in America.
Hold on a second. Most Teslas are made in America. So what you are cheering for is the disenfranchisement and unemployment of Americans. And that goes back to my point, is that from you interrupting to coming up to the mic, you are an agitator or a leftist that would never be able to build something yourself.
I work in construction and have since the age of 14.
Well, you're not working today, and it is a weekday.
Actually, I took off work, and it's lunch hour.
But let me further complete my
I've already
point.
Worked 20 hours this week.
Allow me to
this
further.
Isn't a job.
Wow, 20.
You call this
20
a job?
hours. Wow.
Yeah, and it's Tuesday. I started yesterday.
Allow me to further complete my point, which is that it is easy to interrupt and to scold and to insult. You know what's hard? To go actually build a company like Tesla or SpaceX. How about you say thank you for Elon Musk rescuing those astronauts that were stranded by Joe Biden? Can you say thank you, Elon Musk, for rescuing the astronauts? Can you say that?
I think Elon Musk for taking a chainsaw to the National Park Service, multiple services.
So,
aren't you an Eagle Scout?
What would you have to say?
Did you even graduate college?
No.
In fact,
I didn't go to college. I've been able to be pretty successful without a 4-year degree.
College.
Yeah, I did not go to college.
You're going to come to college and act like you know fucking better
are
than everybody.
we gonna debate resumes or ideas?
Ideas.
Because if we want,
it's a good idea to just defund every major.
Do you want to
program?
debate resumes or ideas? Because if you want to argue from authority, as if you're somehow smarter than I am because you have a meaningless 4-year college degree, or do we want to say who's actually right or wrong? You're engaging in a logical fallacy when you do that.
Do you think it's meaningless to have a degree in construction engineering?
Honestly,
and be a
most
person who
college
wants to
degrees
build
are
this
largely
country?
meaningless. Yes, most college degrees are meaningless, and most of you guys are being totally scammed by being here.
No.
Now, let me further complete the point.
So getting educated is a scam.
Most times, first of all, it's not always an education, and you are perfect evidence that you haven't really been educated. You are hyper hostile. You have no humility. You have very little wisdom about how the world works, and you come and you want so badly to be recognized and noticed, you came with your own bullhorn to cut in line someone who patiently waited to ask the first question. What have you actually learned at this institution except that you're the center of the world and everyone must listen to you? In fact, there is a God and you are not him. And instead of
you go to countries, or you go to campuses and agitate people for like this exact scenario.
I sit here and ask questions. You're the agitator,
you
not
say,
me.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, correct.
The heckler tries to compare the U.S. border situation to Israel's invasion of Gaza, saying that's what a real invasion looks like. Charlie pushes back, arguing that the same elements, government planning, military-aged men, and organized entry, exist at the U.S. border. The disagreement is clear. Charlie sees illegal crossings as a coordinated threat, while the heckler insists it's just immigration. The conversation is now locked on one question. When does illegal entry cross the line into an invasion?
That's free speech.
But how are you having to? This is free speech, and yet you're upset about it.
Well, no, the way that you've conducted yourself, obviously you have a right to do it.
Do you think it's free speech whenever college students protest against Israel committing Gaza
sometimes
and getting black bagged?
Well, it depends.
In St. Louisiana?
Well, it depends if they storm a library and are violent against other students, then not so much.
What about all the peaceful ones?
It depends on a case by case. But the students want another question, and I do agree with them because you embody the worst of this generation, which is, and
are you looking in the mirror?
And I do look in the mirror. You know what I see? I see a sinner that wouldn't act the way you do, which is constantly interrupting, someone that wants to always be the center of conversation, hyper narcissistic
This is what I think. I think
attitude, personality.
Name two
also,
times you've changed your mind because of a debate.
I have changed my mind plenty of times.
Give
In
two
fact,
examples.
I used to be anti-death penalty, and now I'm pro-death penalty. I used to be more libertarian on drugs,
But are you
and now
pro-life?
I'm less
Are you
libertarian on
against abortion?
drugs.
Do you think
I am
believe
very
in-
much against abortion.
You're
in
against
fact.
abortion even in a case.
Yes, I am.
Aren't
That's
you?
correct.
Wow, ladies,
Yes.
listen up. If you get, you're gonna have to hold their baby.
Okay, but let's ask you. Can I ask you a question? If I had an ultrasound of a baby conceived in, or an ultrasound of a baby conceived in a loving relationship, which one is which?
It doesn't matter. That's
No,
about the
because
context.
human rights do not stop based on the method of conception. Human rights are applied to all.
Wow.
In fact, did you know?
So rapists
Fact.
have more rights than a woman.
Well, actually, do you know that there's
About
someone?
the control of
do
their
you know?
body? You're
do you
saying
know
rapists
that
have
there's
more
someone in
control
this
than
audience?
the woman being
Did you,
raped?
there's someone in this audience that was conceived in. Can you tell me who it is?
It doesn't matter.
No, tell me who it is.
It
Because
doesn't matter. Why?
No,
what does that matter?
because
you're
what
burning.
matters is babies conceived in don't get less human rights just because they were conceived in a nasty, ugly, evil way. Human rights apply to all
You're
people.
you're talking about a person versus an unborn fetus.
Oh, so what's the difference between an unborn
God.
baby and a person? What is the moral difference?
Well, one is living and breathing.
Well, how is the baby not living in utero? It has a heart rate, heartbeat.
It would not live
it has,
without the woman.
Hold on, but my 6-month-old baby won't live without my mom. It won't go hunt and gather for itself. My 10-month-old baby won't hunt and gather for itself. So how's that any different than a 2-month in utero?
It doesn't matter.
Well, hold on. No,
deflecting
answer the
from
question.
entire argument.
Answer the question.
The problem
You
is,
used a
the
degree of
problem is
dependency
you think
argument.
Right. Have more rights.
No, I
than
don't. I
the
think
women
that
who
all
has been
human
raped.
beings have rights
Yeah.
because they're made
Probably
in the
because
image
you
of
voted for a
God,
rapist.
and every human being has a right to life and not the right to be exterminated or extinguished.
Every human
just
being
because.
has the right to life. You just said
Correct.
you're pro death penalty. What the fuck are you talking
Okay,
about?
so, all right, so
It can't be both.
Okay, yes, it can. So
Wow,
what?
so some
okay,
lives are more important than others. That's what you're saying?
What did the person that was on death penalty do to get that punishment?
It depends on the crime.
They killed somebody.
No, that's not
if you
always true. It
kill
depends on
somebody,
the
then your
crime.
life should be taken
That's
from.
not true.
Well,
it's dependent on the crime.
Hold on a second. Show me an instance of somebody who got the death penalty
No,
in America.
Don't burden me with the responsibility of educating you.
Show me an instance of somebody who got the death penalty in America the last 30 years that did not commit a capital offense.
I don't need to.
It does not exist. So therefore, a baby in utero did not go kill somebody. Somebody on death row killed somebody.
Yeah,
Are
but-
you smart enough or
Without warning, the topic jumps to Elon Musk. The heckler accuses Musk of making Nazi salutes. Charlie calls the claim absurd and says it's meant to distract from the real issue. From there, he turns the conversation toward property rights, arguing that police should protect businesses, whether it's a small shop or a Tesla dealership, from violent mobs. The heckler isn't letting go, challenging whether public money should be used this way.
educated enough to see the difference between a
so-
baby in utero who did nothing wrong or someone that up a school?
Forget the
Do
baby.
you see the
problem
moral
is
difference?
women having control over their own body.
I
That's
agree.
the
So
issue.
I actually agree. In fact, I agree so much that unborn.
Yeah, especially when you get.
I agree so much that unborn girls in the womb should not be killed because their body should also be respected. If it's not your DNA, it's not your choice. If it's not your DNA, it's not your choice. Thank you for your time, and I hope you'll learn something throughout your long life.
What we've just witnessed was more than a clash of opinions. It was a collision between two very different worldviews, played out in real time, in front of a crowd that clearly had a stake in the outcome. From the very beginning, it was clear that this wasn't going to be a calm, polite exchange. It started with one person stepping up to challenge the host, and within seconds, the tone was set. Accusations of lying, disputes over basic facts, and a constant back and forth over who had the moral high ground. The first spark came over immigration, a single case of deportation that quickly turned into a debate about gangs, crime, and national security. What might have been a discussion about legal procedure escalated into a question of whether the US is facing an invasion. And from there, it grew even more complex. Was this about law enforcement, border security, human rights, or simply two people with no common ground? The heckler focused on due process, the belief that every person, no matter the accusation, deserves their day in court. The host, on the other hand, leaned into the urgency of protecting citizens from dangerous criminals, framing the situation as a coordinated threat from foreign governments and cartels. Neither side budged, and the tension only grew. As we moved deeper into the conversation, the topics began to shift. The discussion about immigration bled into a heated exchange about the definition of invasion, with comparisons to events in Israel and Gaza. The heckler drew a hard line, saying that an invasion is a military action, not the arrival of unarmed migrants. The host countered that an organized influx of millions, backed by hostile actors, is every bit as threatening. This wasn't just a disagreement over policy. It was a disagreement over the meaning of the words themselves. Then, without warning, the spotlight moved to a new controversy: Elon Musk. In seconds, the topic jumped from border security to accusations of Nazi salutes, the role of police in protecting private property, and whether billionaires deserve the same security as everyone else. The heckler saw public protection for private wealth as an abuse of taxpayer dollars. The host saw it as protecting jobs, investments, and the principle that property rights matter for everyone. This wasn't just a tangent. It showed how quickly a political argument can spread into new territory. Education came next, not as a side note, but as a full-blown clash over the value of college. The heckler leaned on the idea that education gives authority in debate. The host rejected that outright, calling most degrees overpriced and meaningless, and pointing to personal success without a 4-year diploma. Here again, neither side gave an inch. It was another snapshot of two fundamentally different ways of looking at the world. But it was the abortion discussion that pushed the exchange into its most emotional territory. The heckler raised extreme cases, pregnancies from assault, expecting to find some middle ground. The host refused, insisting that every unborn child, no matter the circumstances, has the same right to life. For the heckler, this was about a woman's control over her body. For the host, it was about the rights of the unborn, rights that, in his view, exist independently of the mother's choice. The two spoke past each other, neither able to convince the other, and the tension reached its peak. Even in the final minutes, new angles kept appearing. The heckler pointed to the death penalty as proof of a contradiction, that the host supported ending lives in some cases, but not others. The host responded with a moral distinction, the guilty versus the innocent. It was a sharp, uncompromising answer, and one that left no room for middle ground. And then, almost as quickly as it began, the confrontation ended. The host closed with a final statement: "If it's not your DNA, it's not your choice." And the heckler gave no sign of agreement. The debate didn't end because someone won. It ended because they'd reached the natural limit of what could be said in that setting. Two perspectives, firmly held, standing in opposition until the very last second. What's left after a moment like this isn't always clarity. Sometimes it's just the reminder that public discourse is messy, loud, and deeply personal. Whether you agreed with one side, the other, or neither, you saw how quickly a conversation can turn into a contest of willpower. You saw how a single question can open the door to issues that stretch far beyond the original topic. And you saw that in the age of instant video, every word, every interruption, and every reaction can be replayed, reanalyzed, and debated long after the microphones are turned off. If nothing else, this debate shows the value, and the challenge, of open speech. It's proof that the right to speak also comes with the responsibility to listen, and that those two things are far harder to balance than most people realize. Arguments like this won't always end with handshakes or common ground, but they do force ideas into the open, where they can be tested, challenged, and defended. So, if you've made it this far, take a moment to think about what you just heard. What parts made you nod in agreement? Which ones made you want to argue back? Did the conversation change your mind on anything, or did it reinforce what you already believed? That self-check is one of the most valuable things you can take from watching moments like this. And if you found this debate interesting, engaging, or even frustrating in a way that got you thinking, consider subscribing for more. Share this video with someone who has a different opinion from you and see what they take from it. Because the point isn't just to watch, it's to keep the conversation going. The more people are willing to engage, the better chance we have at understanding not just the issues, but each other. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button and share it with a friend. Until the next one.